You know, we hear it all the time. AI is going to create this amazing world of abundance, right? A future where everything's cheaper, our lives are so much easier. But what if there's a catch? What if that same technology creates a kind of trap, a hidden paradox where all that amazing stuff is only available to a tiny group of people? So let's dig in and figure out how that could actually happen.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about the big promise of AI and the big paradox. Then, we'll see how that puts our whole economic system under some serious pressure. After that, we'll get into something called the capture playbook, basically how the gains could all get funneled to the top. From there, we'll look at the two very different futures that could spin out of this. And finally, we'll talk about the choice we all have to make.
Okay, let's jump right into section 1. The promise, the paradox. This really gets to the core of it. Why a world that's supposed to be full of plenty might not actually be for everyone.
So, the promise of AI. I mean, it is absolutely incredible. We're not just talking about robots in factories anymore. We're talking about automating cognitive work. Things like writing code, doing analysis, even creative design. And here's the kicker. Once you build an AI model, it can work 24/7, and the cost to produce one more thing is basically zero. On paper, this sounds amazing for everyone, right? Cheaper stuff, a better standard of living for all of us. What's not to love?
Yeah, it sounds pretty fantastic, doesn't it? So what's the problem? If AI can create all this value, where's the downside? What's the catch?
Well, here it is. This is what we're calling the AI abundance paradox. And it goes like this. The more capable AI gets, the less the economy actually needs most people's labor. But, and this is the huge but, our labor, our job, is the only way most of us get paid. It's how we get the money to buy all the amazing things AI is producing. So you see the problem? The very thing creating the abundance is also taking away our ability to access it.
So what happens when this paradox really starts to play out in the real world? That brings us to section 2, a system under pressure. Because this isn't just about some cool new tech. This is about that technology smashing right into the economic system we've had for centuries.
Think about it like this. In our economy, human labor isn't just a nice to have. It's a load-bearing wall. It's the central pillar holding everything up. It's how most people get an income, and that income is what creates the demand that keeps the whole system going. It's absolutely fundamental.
So what happens when AI starts chipping away at that load-bearing wall? Well, the whole structure starts to wobble. The demand for human workers drops. I mean, when you're up against an AI that never gets tired and never asks for a raise, your bargaining power just tanks. And suddenly, that steady paycheck you count on starts to look a whole lot less secure. It becomes precarious.
And that's the central contradiction right there. AI makes it easier than ever to produce stuff, but it makes it harder for millions of people to get the money they need to actually buy that stuff. It's like the system is getting amazing at supply, but terrible at creating demand. That feedback loop is breaking.
Okay, this leads us to what's really the heart of the issue in section 3, the capture playbook. Because this concentration of wealth, it might not just be an accident. The thinking here is that there are actual deliberate strategies, a playbook, if you will, to make sure all the massive gains from AI get funneled to a very, very small group of people.
So let's break down the 5 strategies in this playbook. How do you capture all that value? Strategy number 1 is kind of wild when you think about it. Manufacture scarcity. In a world where digital things can be copied for free, you have to create artificial limits. So instead of buying software once, now you have to subscribe to it forever. Companies use super strict IP laws to lock down ideas, and they hoard massive amounts of data to create these protective moats around their business. The goal? Keep the best stuff behind a paywall.
All right, strategy number 2, regulatory capture. This is where the big players use their influence to shape the rules of the game in their favor. You'll hear a lot of talk about safety and ethics, but often the result is a mountain of complex regulations that only giant corporations can afford to comply with. And what does that do? It effectively freezes out the competition, the smaller startups, the open source projects.
Okay, but what about all the people who lose their jobs in this transition? Well, strategy number 3 is called manage the displaced. And this can go a couple of different ways. One is to offer just enough of a safety net to keep things from boiling over. The other path is, well, less friendly. It involves more surveillance, more control, and in reality, it's usually some combination of the two.
Strategy number 4 gets into the world of finance. It's all about financial engineering. So when the real economy of wages and jobs is struggling, you can paper over the cracks. How? By pumping up the value of assets, stocks, housing, and making it easy for people to take on debt. It creates this illusion of wealth, but it doesn't solve the underlying problem. People's paychecks aren't actually getting bigger.
And the fifth and final strategy is maybe the most powerful of all: narrative warfare. It's about controlling the story. The message you start to hear everywhere is, look, this is just how it is. Progress is inevitable. And if you're struggling, well, that's on you. You should have learned to code or you didn't adapt. It's a genius move, really, because it takes a massive systemic issue and makes it feel like a personal failure.
So let's say this playbook works perfectly. What kind of world does that create? That's what Section 4 is all about, a tale of two futures. This is what could happen if we just let things continue on the current path under the current rules. And the result is, well, it's a world split in two. For most people, you've got precarious gig work. You have way less bargaining power, your future prospects just kind of flatline, and there's this growing feeling that the whole game is rigged. But for the people who own the AI, who own the capital, it's the exact opposite. Profits are soaring, productivity is through the roof, and their economic power gets concentrated like never before. It almost starts to look like a permanent divide.
Now, that picture is pretty bleak, I know, but here's the good news. It is not inevitable. And that brings us to our final section, the choice we face. Because there is a different path we can take. But it means we have to actively decide to change the rules of the game.
So what does that different path look like? How do we get to a future of shared abundance? Well, here are 4 big ideas. First, what if we treated the most powerful AI systems like public infrastructure, like roads or the internet, not just private assets? Second, let's look at broader ownership. Think things like data trusts, where we all have a stake. Third, we need to build new and better safety nets, whether that's universal basic services or income. And finally, and this one is huge, we have to start redefining what value even means. We need to elevate the human work in care, in community, in arts and culture, all the stuff that the market is really bad at pricing.
Because at the end of the day, it all boils down to this single point. This isn't really a technology problem. It's a choice about how we structure our society. AI is going to create an unbelievable amount of wealth. That's a given. The only question that matters is, who is that abundance going to be for?
So that's the choice we're left with. The technology is here, it's already reshaping our world. The question is, what kind of world do we want to build with it? Will it be abundance for all or abundance for the few? It's really up to us.